the inside story on the issues that affect you and your community. This is Local 12 Newsmakers.
There are far too many people in our city who are still waiting for their worlds to change. Now more than ever, we need vision to continue our momentum and make sure that Cincinnatians experience the benefits of our growth. Our community cannot wait. The time is now.
Good morning and welcome to Local 12 Newsmakers. I'm Dan Hurley. The race for Cincinnati mayor is taking shape. 3 people have already formally declared, and my intention is to devote an entire show early in the year to each candidate. Then, just before the primary in May, which will whittle the field to 2 candidates, and again before the general election in November, I'll have the candidates on the show together. Last week, I was joined by Rob Richardson Jr. This morning, I am joined by Yvette Simpson. Ms. Simpson is currently finishing her 2nd term on council. She serves as the president pro tem of council and the chair of the Human Services, Youth, and Arts Committee, and is a member of the Budget and Finance, Law, and Public Safety, and Major Transportation and Regional Cooperation Committees. Ms. Simpson grew up in Lincoln Heights, graduated from Miami University, the University of Cincinnati College of Law, and earned an MBA at Xavier University. Yvette, welcome to Newsmakers.
Thank you for having me, Dan.
Gee, you got most of the colleges covered here.
Just a couple more to go. I'm checking them off as I go.
There's a graduate nursing degree at Mount St. Joe.
I don't think they want me to be a nurse. I'll stay in my lane.
Sort of on that, though, you have a law degree.
I do.
You have an MBA.
I do.
Why public service?
You know, one of the reasons that I got into public service is because of my background. You know, I grew up in poverty, always wanted to come back to our community in a real way and make a change for kids like me.
What did that mean, that you grew up in poverty?
So, extreme poverty. So, my mom mentally ill, my father was addicted to drugs, crack cocaine at the time, and so I was raised by my grandmother, who had raised 8 children before and was raising 4 of her grandchildren. Many of the challenges that kids in our community face around poverty and a lot of just kind of the socio-cultural issues that people face, we encountered. It was Lincoln Heights is a neighborhood where there are a lot of great people. It's a great village, but because of the economic challenges, you have a lot of violence, you have a lot of abuses, you have a lot of people being taken advantage of, and a lot of that happened to me. I was virtually homeless from 16 to 18. I was couch surfing. My grandmother was moved to a senior facility and I was the last one left in the home, and was fortunate to have family members let me stay with them. But they had their own challenges, and so I ended up moving around a lot. My last move was just before graduation from high school, and then I went off to Miami. I ultimately didn't know where I was going to stay that first break, and so fortunately my aunt, my father's sister at the time, was able to let me stay. So those were the challenges that I faced as a young person.
That sort of experience could destroy a lot of people.
Yeah.
Why did you find, where did you find the strength to then take the path that you've taken since then, or during that period too? But why were you able to sort of come through this? You
know, I try to say to folks, I was not an exception. You know, many of our children who are struggling have the same hope, the same determination, but for them, the opportunity does not come. I mean, I was fortunate to have a mentor at 14. I believe that changed my trajectory in a real way. Someone
a mentor that came from the school? You
from
were at
our
Princeton?
Community, Lincoln Heights. Yeah, Lincoln. So my community did a match for mentors. And ironically, my mentor was not able to fulfill her promise, my original mentor. So on the match day, I was the only one that didn't have a mentor. So they searched the building for someone who would be my mentor so I wouldn't be the only child without a mentor. Go figure. And this amazing woman stepped up, and she's still my mentor today. And so she was someone, she was in Madisonville, had a family, very kind of nuclear family, decided to treat me as her own daughter and took me out of what was a very challenging set of circumstances in my life and showed me a new way, and showed me that my hopes, all the things I dreamed about, were possible. And so what I know about the work that we do with our young people, which is why I'm so passionate about it, is they're not the problem, we are. And if we give them the opportunity and show them the way, they will get through those very challenging circumstances. It's called resilience. And that drives me today. There's nothing that I can't do. I know that because of that circumstance. And I'm really not afraid of much because I've already survived so much in my life.
Given what you've just said, I'm going to jump ahead to a question I was going to ask much later, but one of the things that you have done on council is create the Youth Commission of Cincinnati.
That's right.
Obviously, your experience, your passion around this, what are you trying to do with that?
So one of the things the organization does is it captures the voice of youth, right? We've got over 25 organizations that represent young people. We've also got young people represented and parents. And what we've been doing over the years is really trying to find ways to work better together to solve the challenges that our children face. We've been working on a study for the last couple years, a sophisticated gap analysis that'll be released. The final piece will be released in February. And what we know is that our kids get caught in the crossfire. Right? There are so many things coming at them. There are so many things that are challenging them, but then they get caught in the in-between, right? So I've got a solid education, but I don't have quality health care. I've got quality health care, but I don't have, there's this crime around me. I'm not safe in my community. I'm not safe in my home, and it keeps our children from getting through. And so this organization has been working together in a magnificent way to be able to fill that gap. That same group started a youth summit, which captures the voice of youth. We've had thousands of kids go through that process. And it's been amazing, the transformation in one day that we're able to make in the lives of our young people. And then that group also oversees our Youth to Work program, which has hired thousands of kids in poverty to get that first work experience. We have a 94% completion rate.
94% of people who are hired complete the job?
The entire summer.
Okay, it's a summer youth.
Yeah, I mean that, we're talking about 50% of our kids are at the lowest level of poverty, the lowest level. Meaning a family of four, $18,000 a year. And these kids get this first work experience. They learn why it's important to have a job. They learn financial literacy. Our kids pledged to save almost $300,000 collectively in one summer. Many of them met that pledge. And they're learning the importance of work. That was a big key for me too. I got my first job at 13. And when I realized that I could work hard and get paid, which is the mantra for our kids, I decided I was going to work every day of my life. That changes a child's life. That breaks the cycle of poverty, which is so important. We may not be able to stabilize families, and we should try, and we will, but my family never got out. But I was able to break the cycle because of the interventions in my life.
Now you have other siblings.
I do.
Did some of your siblings, they have solid lives as adults?
Now. But it was
do.
a struggle. So of the four of us, my sister and two of my cousins, I was the only one to graduate from high school. The only one. I watched them all drop out ahead of me. Two got pregnant and just couldn't deal. I mean, it's just tough when you're trying to raise a child and get through high school. One got caught in a life of crime and was arrested before 12th grade. And there I was, still pushing, still hoping after all of that. So, but now they've gone back. Two of my sister and my cousin have both gone back to school, have gotten degrees, and are doing much better.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, how does the work that you're doing with the, I keep wanting to say CYC, so Youth Commission of Cincinnati, and all of the things that you just described, how does that fit in to this effort to deal with childhood poverty, which, let's sort of initiate it, put on the table by Mayor Cranley? How does your initiative fit with his initiative?
Well, it's the same people. So our same partners were brought into the Mayor's Poverty Collaborative. The research that we had already started is the foundation of their research. I think the big challenge that we need to kind of think through, and I've talked to the folks who lead this collaborative, is our foundation is capturing the voice of young people in poverty. And I'm not sure that that work has done that. We've turned over all of our research and we hope that it will be helpful to their solutions. I think the key is talking to people in poverty in a real way. So our study, which will be complete, we've already turned over phase 1 and phase 2. It's actually cited in the Childhood Poverty Collaborative. And our study isn't just about poverty. It's about 6 factors. It's about education, health, workforce, crime, developmental opportunities, and poverty and homelessness. Our work is more comprehensive. It's the most comprehensive work that's ever been done. It captures the voice of youth, and it assumes that there's not a new dollar going into this work. So it demands that we do the work with the resources that we have. So am I excited about that we've got a community that's focused on poverty? Absolutely. Do I want to make sure we don't make the same mistakes we always make, which is to believe that this is a top-down issue and not an issue that we've got to do from the bottom up? I'm pressuring the people in that group to make sure that this is a bottom-up approach, because there were not big institutions and organizations that really made the difference for me. It really was the people on the ground who helped me get through. And we need to make sure that those voices are heard and that we hear from our young people about what they're going through. They know better than anybody. Our study revealed something interesting. We had a couple questions that we asked, the same question of a young person, of a parent, and of a stakeholder. You know that everybody answered that question differently. So guess whose perspective we're taking? The young person, because they know.
Bottom up.
Bottom up, not top down. And so if we can take the resources and the energy of the Child Poverty Collaborative, which is very good, and we can make sure that those resources are working in the ground with the people who know, and work that from the bottom up, I think we're going to have great results. I'm optimistic if we can do that.
So I started this by asking why public service, given your background. Are you a professional politician at this point?
Oh, no, very much not.
Well, I have to say, the reason I'm asking, I might not have asked that question, but one of your opponents, Rob Richardson, without saying your name or John Cranley's name, you know, basically say people at City Hall, they're just career politicians and they're only thinking about the next election.
If you did a poll, if there were 100 Cincinnatians right here in front of us, and you said, do you think Yvette Simpson is a professional politician? I don't think you'd find one person that would say yes. You know, my heart for this work is about the people of this city. It always has been. I reject politics. Like, it's the thing that really disrupts my psyche and gets me most upset about this work, because it does often get in the way. You know, this work is about making sure that, one, we hear from people. I hug people. I'm out with people every single day. You know, I guest bartend and drop in on people. You know,
guest bartend?
I do. That's, you know, I was thinking of that in my mind, because that's the most recent example. I was having a meeting at an establishment in Walnut Hills down from our campaign office, and the owner of the bar, the bartender, was out sick, and she was running around, and one of the people at the bar said, Yvette, come and serve your constituents. And I said, okay, and I got behind the bar and started serving people. And, you know, for me, this is about service. You know, it's about serving people. And I still have such a heart for that, because I remember where I came from. That little girl is still very much in there motivating me to change the world. That's why I use words like, there are people waiting on their worlds to change. Let's change lives. And so for me, have I learned the tools of government and how to bring those together to benefit society? Yeah. I mean, that's what this is about. Do I feel like every single day I'm still that little girl? Yeah. Do I feel like my job, first and foremost, is to serve the people of this city? Yeah. And so I think all of those things negate the idea that somehow I'm, you know, an insider. I still very much every day feel like an outsider in that group.
Okay. This has gone a completely different direction than I thought it was going to go, but it's wonderful.
I have a way of doing that to you. I'm sorry about that. We'll get back on track.
Stay right there. We're going to take a little break and then come back. So stay tuned. Yvette is with me for the entire program, so we'll be right back right here. Welcome back. I'm joined this morning by Yvette Simpson, currently a member of the Cincinnati City Council and one of the 3 announced candidates for the mayor of Cincinnati. The election will be in November. Yvette, let's continue this. Let's get to a couple of issues.
Okay.
And one of those that has popped up recently is the revelation that former Chief Blackwell, Jeffrey Blackwell, there was a settlement for $250,000 that council and the general public did not know about.
Right.
I want to ask you 2 questions. One, from the hindsight of 6 months later, do you think it was right, was it the right time for Blackwell to be fired, to be moved on? And 2, what does it tell you that you as a council member did not know about this settlement?
You know, I think the issues are intertwined. You know, the idea that there are issues that council doesn't know about, right? We have a council manager system. I think there's a lot about the way that Chief Blackwell was terminated that kind of leaves people uncomfortable. It happened fast. Council members weren't notified ahead of time that it was going to happen. There were these reports that we were given the day of the meeting that no one had seen before, including the chief. The promotion ceremony was the same day and we weren't aware. And so, you know, I felt like in my work with Chief Blackwell in the community that he was a great chief. Did I know about the internal workings of the department? No. Did anyone ever share with me that there were challenges? No. You know, in my experience, if someone is not doing a great job and you plan to terminate them, give them the opportunity to respond to the charges against them. And so it happened fast. I raised a lot of those challenges, not about what was in the report, but the way that the report was given to us, the fact that there were questions that we still haven't gotten answers to, the way that I felt like he was disrespected in his termination, that I felt like no one should ever be treated that way, to go into work thinking you're going to work to be met by your subordinates who take your pin off, who take your gun, who say, oh, by the way, you better get a ride because you can't take your car. So you had to have someone pick him up from the district station rather than reporting to the city manager, which is the way he should have been terminated. That's disrespectful, and we shouldn't treat people that way. So to later learn that there was a settlement that we weren't apprised of confirmed, you know, my fears that this just wasn't done the right way. I believe that any chief, including someone like him who had a 30-year career in Columbus, including serving as deputy chief, when given the proper support, can do well. In his first year, we had one of the lowest crime rates that we've had. It actually matches this year, which is one of our lower years. So the idea that we couldn't find a way to support this individual who had come to Cincinnati, had fallen in love with our city and our community, who had worked to bridge the gap between police and community in a way that very few people had before, and was terminated so abruptly and so disrespectfully was challenging to me. And then to learn that our city manager thought it was okay to negotiate a settlement and to clear a settlement and not to tell us either before or after.
But my understanding is the city manager does have a fund, the way it was reported that I read, $900,000 to take care of these kinds of situations, and doesn't have to report how someone who is fired and what sort of settlement they were given, and that fund is there for that purpose. So why should the manager have made council aware of this?
You know, this was a big issue. This is one of the most significant chiefs. I mean, our police director is the most significant. It would be equal to them coming up with a settlement for our city manager and us not knowing. I believe that our administration should know that there are things that we should know about, right? Maybe the public didn't have a right to know, but council directs the manager. We should know these things. And so it is a pattern with this administration that's troubling to me. There are things that we just don't know. And it's interesting, not only does the public not know, which we're a government entity, but when the decision makers don't know, it's a challenge. And so we're changing that, and we're saying we want to know about settlements. And the fact that we have to direct that, I think, is a challenge.
This is...
Oh, and by the way, the mayor knew.
Well, the mayor says he didn't know. The mayor says he thought this had been settled in a court situation and therefore everybody knew.
Okay.
But yes, he did know, but he assumed everybody knew, is what he says. There's another situation that emerged this past year that I think is related in some ways, and that is the city was negotiating with the unions, and in the midst of that, the mayor comes out and announces that he wants to give a 5% increase to the unions for this year, for next year, for and 4% in the third year out. And basically going past the city manager. You and some other council members were very upset about that, didn't like that. Looking back on that, what does it, not just, I don't want to just rehash it, but what's it tell you about the way the city is run today and why you're running for mayor?
So the charter is like our Constitution. It is. It's the rule by which, it's the rule we follow. We make the law, so why shouldn't we follow the law? The idea that we would ever skirt around the charter, to me, is a challenge. The fact that the idea that a mayor would ever think that they could substitute their role for the city manager. We have a council manager system. Until the voters change that, we should respect that system. So I'm a process person. You know, I feel like I'm a person that the rules are there and we should follow them. If we don't like them, change them. And so this to me just shows that we have an administration, a mayor, we'll say, who wants to do what he wants to do without regard to the rules. That does not instill confidence in the people. You know, people know that if they break the law, if they break the rules of the land, that they will be punished for that, and that's why we follow the law. The idea that we would go around the collective bargaining process, which is a process that we just fought so hard to protect with the SB 5. And
SB 5 was the effort to undermine public unions.
Right, and
by the state.
And part of the effort to oppose SB 5 was saying that collective bargaining is the thing that is most union-like. The idea that people should be able to collectively bargain for the raises, they should be able to collectively bargain with their decision maker. In our city, that decision maker is the city manager. The mayor's attempt to do an end run around the city manager, putting him in a very awkward position. He has a different set of standards that he has to follow, and then also violating the charter and doing it. It's just not the way to do it. If our end goal was to give raises, the better way to do it would have been to put the money in the budget and then empower the city manager to make those changes.
This has another implication, and that is that in the past you have been supported by unions.
Yep.
But you took a stand that you were opposed to this. The unions, of course, like the idea that the mayor did the end around and offered more than they were getting on the table in the negotiations, which has hurt you with the unions. Obviously, it helps John, the mayor, and you're running, the third person in this race has a lot of labor ties. Rob Richardson, we talked about this last week. So what is that? Where are you left with the unions?
You know, here's the thing, I think. And unions are an organization, but they have individual members. And those individuals, some of them are in the city and they're voters and some are not. I don't believe there's ever an excuse for doing the wrong thing. I think you always do the right thing. And I think if you do the right thing for the right reason, it always works out. I mean, and that's been the case in my life. I could have taken plenty of shortcuts and I could have broken many rules to get to where I am today. The fact that I've come from where I've come from and I've been able to do that in a way that's honest and that's of integrity and not having to break rules, I'm not gonna start now. What I think is that even the individuals who benefited from that decision know that it wasn't the best way to do it. And in the middle of those conversations, I was imploring them that this could set a bad precedent. This could come back to bite us in a real way. We've just heard that the state might be bringing right to work back. If they can use Cincinnati as an example for why collective bargaining isn't necessary, that we could have the leader, the elected leader, set raises, then that could set the precedent for in the future Republican mayors saying, okay, I set your raises. You don't need to collective bargain. So at the end of the day, you have to stand on principle. I think I still have great relationships with the unions because I know that they believe I'm a good leader, and that my heart was to give them raises. I just didn't support the process, and that they know that we could have done that differently, and we should have.
How do you think that will impact you, though, your campaign, both in terms of financial support and in terms of shoe leather support, people out there working for you?
I believe that we have the support of the voters, and I believe that we have a groundswell of people who support me. I also believe that there are people who work for our city who know the kind of leader that I am. They've seen me say hi to them. They've seen me ask how they're doing. They've seen me represent them and make sure they're taken care of. And I think when those people get in the ballot box when nobody's watching, when we all get to be confidential, I think they'll make the right choice. Because they understand that with me as mayor, they will get fair compensation and we won't have to break the rules to do it.
Got only a minute left on this
one. Oh, wow.
I know.
Goes fast.
But if you had to pick one thing that you say that if you were mayor would be your top priority, what would it be?
That's tough. We got a couple issues we need to tackle.
I know. Well, you can talk fast.
You know, the way we explain this is that we need to grow as a city and we need to do that equitably. So we've got to revitalize neighborhoods in a real way. We've got to deal with the issues that are now keeping a certain population in our city down. So we've got 3 initiatives that we're going to focus on specifically around that, and people will learn more about that as the election goes on.
Okay. Well, first off, thank you for being here. I want to make the point that people can follow your website at YvetteSimpson.com, and your office is in People's Corner.
That's right. Come and see us.
And right there on the corner, it's easy to see. So thank you for being here this morning. And thank you for making Newsmakers a part of your Sunday morning. Join us again next week when I'll be joined by C.G. Newsom, the departing president of the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center, and a young Mexican woman who was brought here at age 4 and now faces the probability that President Trump will end the Dreamer program that allows her to go to college and work as a bank teller. Have a good week.